Hi there. Welcome back to the Out of the Cave podcast with Lisa Schlossberg. I'm your host, Lisa Schlossberg, a licensed social worker, certified health coach, personal trainer, and yoga instructor. If you, like I have, struggle with your relationship with food, eating, and body image, I am here with this podcast to guide you into healing the relationship you have with yourself through a trauma-informed, holistic, and mind-body-soul approach. Together, we can support you in building a lifestyle of more peace, freedom, safety, and power. Hello again. Welcome back to the Out of the Cave podcast. This is your girl, Lisa Schlossberg, and we are here for solo series, chapter 16. And if you have not listened to the previous episode, definitely do that, because I am, like I said at the end of the last episode, I'm just going to continue this. And so in real time, this is not one of those times like it has been in the past where I listen to the episode and I take about a week and I let it marinate and I think about my thoughts and my additions and my reflections, and then I come back and I add some things. This is not that. What this is I just finished recording and then I took a bathroom break and now I'm recording again. So I really do want to just dive right in, because this is going to wrap it all up. This is going to bring it all together. We started a few episodes ago with the internalized male gaze and talked about, the macro to micro effect, and now social identities and privilege and oppression and the animal brain and the social context and what all this means for you ultimately. So, like I said in the last one, my intention here is to share with you more things about how you can manage this animal brain in a social context while still feeling safe in your body as you are right now. And as I keep sharing, this is the foundation for intentional weight loss. So that's how it's all coming together. Okay, so let's start with, or come back to, what I was saying in the last episode about how now I live out here. I live out here in the context and the world that I once was in so much denial of. And what I've learned how to do, because, and I think, again, the only reason that I know how to do this or can practice doing this is because of all the years I spent rejecting the internalization of, I'm going to go back to always, now I have the language for, the curriculum of girlhood. And so I want to offer how I am able to ultimately bring the connection back to myself and not stay lost in how other people are viewing me or judging me. And I think about what came up it's come up a few times in my group coaching program when I would talk about my experience of going to the gym. And at the time, so I had lost all this weight. I was working as a personal trainer, and there were times where I would go to the gym in my hometown. So at this point, let's say, okay, I went through grad school and I moved to California. And so when I would go home, I was not still in the thinnest body that I ever was. This is after gaining some weight and getting my period again and regrowing my hair again and really restoring my body after my weight loss, which did require gaining somewhere around 20 to 30, but it was like 30 pounds I put back on my body. And so anyway, if I were to visit New York, where I grew up, and I was going to the gym there, what sometimes would happen is that I would see people like that I went to high school with or that I grew up with that I hadn't seen in a really long time. And I remember for example, I remember one New Year's party that I went to back in New York after all my weight loss. It had been like years since high school, years since I saw a lot of people. But one of my friends was having a New Year's party, and she happened to have an older brother, 2 years older, one or 2 years older than us. So there was a lot of kids from high school that I hadn't seen in a while. And I just remember like, it was so, it's that moment. It's that moment in movies that the fat girl lost all the weight and got to go to a party and show it off. And it felt exactly that way. It really did. I certainly felt a boost of confidence. I felt my ego being stroked. I felt like I got to show myself off in front of all the hot guys that never looked in my direction. Like I received all of that. But so again, like, and I look back at this and it's like, it was so innocent, this coming of age, like rite of passage, all of this stuff. But again, I don't want to get distracted by all my reflections on it. I do welcome any and all of your questions. But so I remember this was like the period of life and of time that I was in where I wasn't still defining myself by the judgments of other people, but it felt really fucking good. It felt really fucking good to be able to be like that girl at the party. Especially because of some of the people and some of the guys specifically that were there. So, all of this to say that there were times where I would come back to New York and I would go to the gym and I would see, lo and behold, of course, the kid that I had the biggest crush on. Oh my God. If you asked me in middle school, I would say that I was in love with this kid. And we were very good friends too. And then high school happened. We grew apart a little bit. And I do think I have no proof of this. There is no direct evidence. But I do think that part of it was because of how I looked and my weight. And so the reason I'm using this example is because I would go to the gym and I would see him. And now I'm, half the size that I used to be. And I would get very distracted by the fact that he was at the gym. And this is what the example that used to come up in my group calls, because I was recognizing in my clients how often it resembled this experience that I used to have at the gym, where I would go, I would see him, and I would get very distracted, and all of my thoughts would be about him. And I'm laughing because I already told you the story of how I gave my number out to a guy at the gym recently because he looked like the guy that I had a crush on in middle school, and this is that guy. So what I would notice happen is I would see him, and then I was no longer present in my workout. I wasn't focused on lifting weights. All of a sudden, all I could think about was, is he seeing me? What is he thinking of me? Does he notice what I look like? Does he see how much weight I've lost? Am I impressive to him? Does he think I'm hot now? Does he want to pay attention to me now? What is going through his head? How does he feel when he sees me? And it's like, all of a sudden, I am no longer present. I am not connected to my body. I am not in my body. I am all up in my head, completely focused on what is going on inside of his head. And I would notice this happen in real time. And I would have to remind myself that all of these thoughts are so valid. Like, the way that I would relate to myself in this is like, how could you not? How could you not be thinking this? Of course you're thinking this. And, okay, valid and, there's merch on the website. Valid and, of course these are valid thoughts. And you did not come to the gym to see this guy. You are not working out because you want other people to look at you a certain way. Do not get lost. Do not lose your focus. Do not let your mind wander so much into preoccupation with what he's thinking of you that you are no longer here. And it was ultimately my way of waking myself out of, it wasn't even the internalized male gaze, though there's plenty of that. And there's plenty of that at the gym too. And I will say more about that. But it wasn't even the internalized male gaze as much as it was the male gaze. He's here. He's really here in real time, looking at me, seeing me. And it was very distracting. But it was very much like I said in the episode about going on semester at sea, where it was like, oh, hell no. Hell no. I'm not letting the fear of weight gain jeopardize my opportunity to travel the world. And it was that same energy of like, hell no, I am not letting the fact that this guy is at the gym derail me from my workout. No, I am not spending my time and energy focused on him. I'm spending my time and energy focused on me. That's why I come to the gym. That's why I'm here, because I care about my health and I care about my well-being. And I am proud of, myself and the product of all the work that I've put in. So what he's thinking of me is really neither here nor there. What's going on in his head is none of my business. And very much like, so again, the reason I'm telling you this is because I would share this sometimes in group and talk about this experience of getting completely derailed and distracted by what's going on outside of me. And then the response would always be, but how? How do you do it? How could you go to the gym and see the kid that you had a crush on in high school now half the size? And how do you not get distracted by that? How do you not let that, become your whole thing? How do you keep your cool but not keep your cool? How do you stay focused on yourself? How do you stay, ultimately what the question was at the end of the day is, how do you stay connected to yourself when there is so much temptation to be distracted by other people? Okay? How do you stay connected to yourself when there's so much temptation to be distracted by other people? Okay? So this is not about weight. This is not about our bodies. This is about an animal brain in a social context. And you're needing to feel safe in this. And so the answer to that is, I always thought of it like a meditation. And this is why I don't fuck around with a meditation practice. And this is why I believe so strongly in a consistent meditation practice, because what you're doing is strengthening the muscle of directing your own focus. Okay? What you're doing when you do things like meditate or practice mindfulness is you are strengthening the muscle of directing your own energy and focus and attention. And so you will, very much like a meditation, if you practice meditation, your mind wanders. And again, of course it wanders. It's neither here nor there if it wanders. You're not doing it wrong if it wanders. That's exactly what you're creating when you are meditating. You're creating a space for your mind to wander so that you can bring it back. That's the point. The point of meditation is not for your mind to not wander. The point of meditation is for you to strengthen the muscle of bringing yourself back. And if you are not doing any sort of meditation or mindfulness activity or practice or anything, if you never practice strengthening the muscle, if you don't put the reps in to strengthen the muscle, to direct your own focus, you will be constantly distracted by other people and your external environment and what's going on out there and what are those people thinking of me. And so all of this to say, I would answer the question exactly this way. That is, I am not doing anything that you cannot also do. I have a lot of practice at it. And again, I genuinely think that so much, I've been strengthening this muscle since I was 5 years old and my sister died. And every single time I had a thought about her or her death, I distracted myself and I avoided it. I have been focusing my attention away from things that I don't want to focus on and toward things that I do want to focus on for many years at this point, because that's how my denial and avoidance showed up. So the point here is, if I'm at the gym and I see the kid I have a crush on and I'm noticing myself, first I have to be aware. Do you see a theme? Do you see a pattern? First, I have to be aware. First, you have to notice that it's happening, because if your time and energy and focus and attention are being sucked away from you and you have no idea, there is nothing that you can do about it. You are not empowered. So the first thing is you have to be aware. So the first thing is I'm aware. I see that this is happening in real time. And then I gently, lovingly bring myself back. That is, again, of course you have these thoughts. Of course you are preoccupied with this. And quick reminder, what other people think of you is none of your business. And you're not at the gym here to show off your body to other people. You are here to stay focused on yourself. So a loving reminder to come back inside your body, feel your breath move through your body, feel your feet on the floor, feel the clothes on your skin, hear the music that is pumping through your headphones right now. come back, come back, come back. And that is the way that I would do it. That is the way I do it. And again, I'm not doing anything that you can't do. It's just a matter of strengthening that muscle so that you can practice this. And for what it's worth, the other thing that I add about it and what I wrote in my notes is, to me, it's the energy of, I always have this visual when this stuff happens where it's kind of like, inner child, inner parent are walking down the street, and the inner parent has the intention to be present and grounded and connected. And they're walking down the street, hand in hand together. And then all of a sudden, the inner child sees a playground, and she just runs. She just runs right onto the playground. She doesn't ask any permission. She doesn't get consent. She doesn't say, do we have time for this? Am I allowed to do this? She just, it's so innocent. Oh my God, a playground. And when a child in a safe environment sees a playground, it's just going to go. It's just, oh my God, a playground. And that's what happens. This is the visual, the energy of it in my head, in my heart. This is what's happening, is that my inner child just runs away. And it's so, again, it's pure. It's childlike. It's not childish. It is childlike. It is pure, childlike, innocent movement into this distraction. I got distracted. I saw a playground. And so the way that I do it and the way I talk myself through it is very much like that. That is, the inner parent has to, notice that the child has run away again. And then the parent has the opportunity, tender self-compassion and fierce self. This is a great example to me of like tender and fierce self-compassion wrapped up in one. Where the way that I do it is I turn toward myself, my inner child that got distracted on the playground, which in this metaphor is, this is me getting distracted by what the cute guy I used to have a crush on thinks of me. And then I notice that and I say, okay, this is so fair. You saw a playground. You want to play on the playground. You love the playground. That is totally okay. And right now, you and I are on a walk toward this destination, and unfortunately, we don't have time for this, or this isn't part of the plan today, or you're not allowed to do that right now because I'm the parent and you're the child, and it's totally okay that you want to, and it's totally okay that it's, instinctive for you to see a playground and run to it, and no. Lovingly, no. What we're going to do is bring our attention back here. We're going to get back to the sidewalk, and we're going to keep walking to our destination. And that's it. And that's how I do it. And it's very much, again, like a moving meditation. Life is meditation. Like many episodes ago where I kept saying everything is yoga, life is yoga. Like this is what I mean. Because there are endless opportunities to be distracted by other people. And we have to get in the practice of bringing ourselves back. Just come back. Do it lovingly, do it intentionally, do it gently. And honestly, that is what it requires. So all of this is to say that when you are out there and you first are noticing, wow, there is a lot of preoccupation with what other people are thinking of me, or my mind is always focused on how other people are perceiving me, you can just start to bring yourself back. This is a living, breathing practice. So again, find your breath, notice your breath, close your eyes. I'm going to say more about that. That can be really helpful to just like reorient you to your internal experience by closing off the external experience. Activating your 5 senses are always a way that you can bring yourself back to being grounded in the present moment. So like I said, if this is me at the gym, I'm like, okay, pay attention to the music that is playing. That is something that I can anchor into, and I can feel my breath move through my body, and I can just come back. And so again, you always have the opportunity to do it. And as you've heard me say before, most likely you will forget and then you will remember. You will forget and you'll remember. You will objectify yourself and then you will wake up and you will get distracted by what other people are thinking of you. And then you will remember that is none of your business. And it is a lifelong practice of forgetting and remembering, of your inner child running onto the playground and then you as the parent showing up and saying, I love you, and no, we're not doing that right now. That is the practice. So now what I want to say more about is the way that the gym, so I talked about Semester at Sea being this very interesting kind of microcosm of the world, this container where I got to practice showing up in a social environment. But I think very much this is true in the same way for the gym. The gym is a social context that you can put yourself through. You can walk into a gym and be in this container of all different kinds of people and then leave. So this is why for me, especially if you've listened to the exercise episodes, you know, exercise for me is not about exercise. Exercise is a place, and going to work out at the gym is a place where I get to practice this, where I get to strengthen the muscle of bringing myself back to myself. And this is also why I said in the exercise episodes, right? Yoga is known as a mind-body exercise. But the truth is, all exercise can be a mind-body exercise if you connect your mind to your body. If you are mindfully aware of what your body is doing, you're doing a mind-body exercise. So the gym has been a really interesting place for me over the last decade or so because it's practiced not getting distracted from myself in either direction. So like I was talking about, the preoccupation with are people judging me negatively or the preoccupation with are people judging me positively, I could be thinking about all of that at the gym at this point. And so it's always an activity. It's a mindfulness activity for me because I see how tempting it is to be distracted in a place like the gym. And this is why, like, I'm looking through my notes and I wrote here, this is why Dennis changed my whole life. Because the story of Dennis, who I met on Tinder when I wanted to learn how to lift weights, you know, the thing that he taught me was that you have to be paying attention. You have to be present and connected to your body because at the end of the day, like I literally just wrote here in my notes, if you are so preoccupied with other people in either direction, you're going to fuck up your back doing a deadlift. Like because at that point, it's like I wanted to do heavy lifting. I wanted to do these compound movements like a deadlift and a squat and things like that. And it's like, if you're going to put over 100 pounds on your back and squat and you have to do that with proper form so that you don't injure yourself, you cannot be thinking about what other people are thinking of you. And that's what I remember so much of like going to the gym and him teaching me how to do a deadlift, which is again, like, you know, there's a bar of weight on the ground and you're basically picking it up and putting it back down. And there's a few different forms to do that with. And there's a few different kinds of deadlifts. And that's also not what this is about. But the idea, like I remember the way that he slowed me down because he could just intuitively kind of tell that I was like really in my head and like this buzzing kind of fragmented, distracted energy. And he was like, no. You know, like you do not think about lifting this bar until you are one with the bar. Like you have to be here. You have to be in your body and you have to be aware. That's the thing about these compound movements too, especially more than like if you're sitting on a machine or something, is like you have to be really aware of your feet and your ankles and your knees and your back and your hips and how your shoulders and your like, how are things lining up? Are you literally physically in alignment so that you don't hurt yourself? And you cannot be doing things like I know the people that are listening to this podcast right now who have experience with this kind of stuff, like I imagine you are nodding your head because it's like, you know that if you get distracted, you are not going to perform the way that is safe ultimately. If you're thinking about other people, you cannot be taking really good mindful care of your own body in movement. And this is the other thing that over the last decade, I've gotten to practice a lot in yoga too, specifically, which I find so fascinating because it's such a study of the mind-body connection. Because the amount of times that if I notice that if I'm in a balancing pose or my hope or intention is to like nail the balance of a pose, I could be in it. I could be doing it so well, which, again, like yoga, the purpose of yoga is not to be like nailing the postures. But again, there is that like human ego part of it. And so I could be nailing the balance of a pose so well that if I then start thinking about, oh my God, I'm doing it, boom, I fall out immediately. Or if I am nailing the pose or the posture, the asana, the posture of a pose in yoga, and then I start thinking about, does everyone else see how good I'm doing? Boom, I fall out of it immediately. Like I can't keep my balance because it's it's been years of I get to run this experiment on myself. I know that this is exactly what's happening. I can be so present in my body, focused on the movement and the breath and my experience of feeling it and my muscles and my sweat. And like I am present in myself and I can be so focused that I nail it. And then as soon as I start thinking about really anything other than that, I fall right out. And that is exactly the point. So again, I think a lot of people can talk about exercise and movement and working out and things like that, but we're not talking about it in a way where you can use it as an opportunity to completely rewire your entire mind-body system so that you can feel safer in your body, right? Because a lot of the time, the reason that people are intimidated to go to the gym or scared of going to the gym or just generally uncomfortable with going to the gym is because the whole thing is other people will see me. Other people might judge me. And it's like, you can use that. To me, you at this point know how much I really believe in practicing something like exposure therapy in a safe, gradual, trauma-informed way. But to me, it's like, if you are avoiding something like the gym because you don't want other people to see you or judge you, that is likely present in all areas of your life. And so now it's like, okay, you don't feel safe to exist in a social context. And the result of that is avoidance. It's experiential avoidance. Is that now it's like life gets small because you don't want to be seen and judged. Whereas you could also practice in, again, slowly, gradually, like the example I gave episodes ago about going to the beach and taking your cover up off, like being seen and allowing yourself to know that potentially other people are seeing and judging you, and it doesn't matter. It's none of your business. You get to try that on and you get to practice letting your mind wander to that and then bringing yourself back. Not so that you can nail the pose or get a great workout, but because this is happening all over all the time. And if you want to be not even just safe, but like empowered to live the life you want to live and embody your authenticity, you have to know that sometimes people are going to see you and judge you. And you like, I think we have to be okay with that. Or at least willing to tolerate the discomfort of that. And again, this is where for me, it's like, if I didn't grow up the way that I grew up, I don't know what I would be saying about this. I don't know what my experience of this would be, but I do know that feeling so excluded, let's say, from positive judgment as a kid, it allows me now to exercise this muscle again, now that I'm awake. Okay, so having said all of that, the other things that I want to share with you, just in terms of being at the gym and embodying this, staying close and present to myself, is I close my eyes a lot at the gym. And like I said earlier, like that's intentional. That is a strategy where if my eyes are open, then I'm leaving myself, vulnerable to the distractions around me, i.e. the other human beings around me and what they may or may not be thinking of me. But when I notice that I'm getting really distracted, I will literally just close my eyes. And I find it extremely helpful because especially if I'm sitting on a machine or I'm doing some sort of like a dumbbell lift or cables or something like that, if I close my eyes, now I can focus on how my muscles feel, on what's going on in my body. And again, this is all to me part of just healing disconnection, dissociation, but also it's healing the habit of being distracted by other people. Because again, this is not just at the gym, this is all the time. The internalized male gaze does not shut off no matter where we are. This is the whole point. We take this into our bedrooms where we're alone. So if we can go into the gym, into the social environment and practice bringing the awareness and connection back inside the body rather than outside the body. We focus on how we feel rather than how we look. We can start to feel safer and more empowered. And that again is the whole idea. So one strategy that I want to offer to you is closing your eyes. Because when we talk about re-inhabiting the body and being oriented to what it feels like inside rather than how we look outside, this is one of those things that really helps me do that. And again, I'm not suggesting that you like run on the treadmill with your eyes closed. Like, be smart about it. But if you have the opportunity where you notice that you're getting distracted and you need to bring yourself back, close your eyes, because all of a sudden you can't even see the people outside of you that you're so preoccupied with. And it can be the first move, the first step to reconnecting with yourself. And I remember I actually did this in college, which is very interesting for me now to think about. But I realized, so I also used to I still do listen to a lot of motivational speeches. Can you tell? And what I remember was I would go on the rowing machine. I've done this on the elliptical too, but I think it was better on the rowing machine because the rowing machine, you're strapped in, your feet are strapped in, and you're just, pulling the row, I don't know, the bar. And what I remember was sometimes I would listen to these motivational speeches and I would keep my eyes closed. And I would be on the rowing machine for minutes at a time with my eyes closed because it was completely safe. Again, my feet were locked in. I wasn't going anywhere. I didn't need balance or any of that kind of orientation. And it was a way, the reason I say it's interesting to think about now is because at the time in college, when I was doing a lot of cardio just for the purpose of weight loss, I wasn't necessarily thinking about any of this in terms of getting more in touch with my body, but that's exactly what was happening. And this is why, because I was doing things like closing my eyes to actually feel the movement and listen to what I'm listening to and active. Again, it's it was all a mindfulness activity. I didn't know that that's exactly what I was doing. So that's an invitation is if you're on a rowing machine, if you're on an elliptical, if you could just take a few seconds, again, if this is safe, to close your eyes, if you're lifting a weight, can you set the intention to use exercise as a way to strengthen your mind-body connection, and again, as habit breaking, so that you have the opportunity to practice no longer being distracted by that which is outside of you, again, other people, social context. The other thing that I want to share with you, because this is the stuff that had been marinating for weeks when I was recording all of these, is I've talked about the bubble, I think. If not, I'll talk to you about the bubble. The bubble, I originally actually got this from John Gabriel. So when I was working with John and I was learning from his visualization practice, which is another thing that I thought was a crock of shit in the beginning, and then I started doing it and was wow, noted. I was wrong again. But one of the things that I remember about his visualizations, when he would invite us to imagine that we were in this bubble, this completely indestructible bubble. And, to visualize ourselves in this bubble. And then I think the way that he would do it was he would talk about, imagine, a car hits the bubble and it just shatters. And then a train comes full speed at the bubble and it also just shatters. Nothing can get in this bubble. You are completely, fully safe and protected. And so one of the things that I started doing, and this is one of my, I will say, I don't want to say critiques, but sometimes when it comes to things like visualization or even meditation, especially as it relates to weight loss, sometimes it can be shared through this lens of like, just work on the subconscious and everything else will fall into place. So for example, like just imagine that you're in this bubble and visualize your bubble, and then, you'll feel safe and your body will release the weight. That's the idea. And I think that sometimes that can totally be true. But what I started doing was realizing that I could call upon the energy of my safe, protective bubble when I felt like I needed it. So I was like pairing the subconscious work with being really conscious in real time. And so I started playing with this idea of the safe, protected bubble when I felt like I needed that kind of energy. And so I remember one time, and I think I've said this here before, I was in a conversation with someone who was really pissing me off. And it was one of those times where it was like, I'm not even going to say anything. I'm in no place to have, to engage with this. But I remember sitting on the couch in a group setting, having this conversation. And I remember calling upon my bubble and envisioning and visualizing in that moment, sitting on the couch in a bubble where nothing could touch me and nothing could hurt me. And I was fully and completely safe. And I remembered feeling protected from the energy around me because I had like made the conscious choice to use this kind of like energetic tool. So the reason I'm telling you this is because what I do sometimes now is I imagine that I'm in my bubble when I'm at the gym. And what I've noticed is, especially when I start getting distracted by other people or what other people think of me, for example, I put myself in my bubble. And I think about, as I said in the exercise episodes, the energy of the statement that a yoga instructor that I used to take class with all the time would say is, forget about everything outside the four corners of your mat. Which is to say, forget about everything that is not you and your body and your breath and your movement right now. And I would take that very seriously, and I would take that very literally, that if my mind started to wander, I would A, become aware of that, and then B, be like, this is outside of the four corners of my mat. That's not welcome here right now. I can think about that later. I can come back to this. But right now, it's me and it's my body and my breath and my movement and the four corners of my mat, and that is it. And again, I would think of this as I would take it seriously. I thought about it as a mind strengthening activity as much as a body strengthening activity. And I still use that. Again, I've strengthened that muscle, and I use that same muscle, that same skill now. So what I do when I especially am distracted by other people, which is usually when I'm on the treadmill and I'm running sprints, because I will run sprints at the maximum speed of the treadmill. There is a lot of sweat. There's a lot of breathing. There's grunting. There's like, I'm in it. And in order for me to train that way, where I feel the most alive and connected and present, I have to be mindful to not be distracted by what other people are thinking of me and how other people are looking at me and what's going on with other people. And so I put myself in my bubble. And what I've done so much recently over the last couple of years is I imagine that I am on the treadmill. I'm not kidding. I'm literally doing this where I'm on the treadmill, and I imagine that me on my whole treadmill is in a bubble. And anything that's going on outside that bubble is not any of my business. It doesn't matter to me. If it's outside of my bubble, it's outside of my bubble. And all I got to focus on is me and my movement and my breath and my bubble. And that is very helpful for me. So I'm saying this because it's like, you want to know how to go out there into the gym. You want to know how to go out there into the world, feeling safe to be in your body, regardless of what's going on with other people. These are the tools that I'm using very really in real time. I use my bubble. I use closing my eyes. I use the visual of being distracted like an inner child on a playground, just got to be brought back. Like, this is how I do it. And the reason I'm telling you this is also because what is so cool about it to me is that none of this is visible to the outsider. You don't know that I'm doing any of this. You don't know that when I'm running sprints on the treadmill that I am thinking about being in an indestructible bubble so that I'm not distracted by what you're thinking of me. You don't know when I'm lifting weights. Most likely, from most angles, you don't know that my eyes are closed, but that's what I have to do to stay focused on me and not focused on you. So I'm mindful of doing that. And again, this feels important because no one can do it for me. No one can do this for me. There are so many things other people can do for you, but if your energy and time and internal psychic resources are being leaked to how other people are perceiving you and judging you, no one can give you your power back. You have to reclaim your power. You have to reclaim your presence. You have to reclaim your connection to your body. Because if you don't do it, your animal brain running wild in a social context is going to be very distracted. And if it's very distracted, you will not feel embodied in safety. Period. That's it. So, other things I want to tell you about, just to give you more detail. Okay, I wrote about, in my notes, I was thinking about the yoga studio that I did my teacher training at years ago in Newport Beach, California. Okay, I'm laughing because I did my teacher training at a hot yoga studio in Newport Beach in Orange County, California. And the reason that that's funny to me now is because, again, same with, talking about other cultures and other countries. This is not a blanket statement about Orange County. This is not a judgment about every person that ever lived in Orange County. Obviously, I'm not going to say any of that. However, if you've ever seen, The Real Housewives of Orange County, which, by the way, I have not, but if you've ever heard any of the stereotypes of what Orange County is like, in my experience, those are true. those are real. And so what that means is it felt to me, I'm talking about my lived experience, okay, that I was in this environment that was very preoccupied with what other people looked like. And if people fit the mold and what people could offer to you. And, I did not feel during my time in Orange County, specifically Newport Beach, I have to say, I did not feel like that was a place that 300-pound Lisa Schlossberg would feel comfortable. It just was not. And so I find it almost comical to think about the environment of the yoga studio that I was at as it relates specifically to things like the preoccupation with other people judging you and weight and bodies and shape and size and the internalized male gaze. It's like, if I wanted anywhere to practice this, that was a really good playground for that. That was a really good opportunity that I gave myself because of that context. So the reason I'm bringing up the yoga studio is because it wasn't really necessarily about the studio itself or, whatever, but at a certain point I realized that I would go to class and I was watching my monkey brain, very much like a meditation, get distracted by what other people were thinking. And again, it didn't matter that it wasn't negative. Now it was like, am I as good as I could be? Not like, am I good enough? I knew I was good enough, but it was like, are other people seeing me and how good I am? Because I was really good at that yoga flow. I was really competitive with myself about how I was showing up and blah, blah, blah. And so at a certain point, it was an intention of mine to, again, use this experience of watching myself get so distracted as an opportunity to practice strengthening the muscle of bringing myself back. That was the intention. I was not just going in there to get a workout. I wasn't just going in there to do yoga, but I was going in there because I realized at a certain point, I remember thinking that I want to be someone who shares a message and a mission with the world where I will be, to some degree, in the public eye. Like how much I will be seen and noticed in my life, I don't know. But, my intention is to not really be quiet about what I have to share with the world. And so I remember going in being like, I'm going to use this as practice. And so for a while, I would go and I would put my mat I was front and center. I was in the front row and I was in the center of the room, because that it maximized my opportunity to practice. Because if I were front and center, then essentially everyone could have eyes on me if they wanted to at any point in the class. And especially when I was killing it. And when I was doing the poses that some other people couldn't do, I was front and center. And it just so happened that a lot of those poses were the balancing series. And so I noticed, again, that every time I tried to do my standing head to knee, if you're a yoga person, you know what I'm talking about, or my bow, if I was doing poses that required balance and therefore focus, if I had to be focused on myself to perform the way that I wanted to, if my mind was going to what other people are thinking of me, I couldn't do that. And so I put myself over and over and over again front and center in this yoga studio so that I could intentionally train my brain to stay focused on myself. So essentially what I'm saying to you is, not only can no one do this for you, but it's got to be intentional. Like, it has to be a conscious effort. It has to be, or at least it was for me, that I saw this as a way to practice. And that is what I used it for. And I also noticed, we talk about the internalized male gaze, that I would get very distracted, again, like so valid and of course, very innocently. But there were some really hot guys that went to this yoga studio, and they would be very close to me, and they would be hot and sweaty and shredded and gorgeous, and nothing like a hot, sweaty man doing yoga next to you to be distracting, if you're me anyway. So it was this, like, I was going in there, putting myself in the like an opportune environment to practice bringing my awareness back to myself. And that is exactly what I did. And that's how I got, I say, pretty good at it. So ultimately what I'm saying is, you can take responsibility for how your animal brain shows up in this social context. And actually, I believe you have to. Right? Because if you don't, I think that you could spend your entire life so preoccupied with what other people think of you that you never have any connection to yourself. And then if that's the way that you experience your life and the world, how can you feel safe enough to embody your body so that you can actually change it or do what you want with it or be empowered in it? You're not home. No one's home. Right? If all you're thinking about is other people judging you, no one's home. And if no one's home, you can't get very far. Okay, so last couple things I want to say. I am going to come back to, in much more detail, what I want to say about getting comments from other people. Because there was a lot of getting comments from other people when I first lost weight, like I mentioned. And then there was a whole experience of what happened when I was no longer getting comments from other people. And this time around, now that again, I've shaved off about 40 pounds from my body and I am the leanest and thinnest and strongest that I've ever been, there has been a whole lot of getting comments once again. So I'm going to come back to that because that also is not what I'm here to talk about. But what I did want to tell you is that very recently, so a few weeks ago before I started traveling, there's a guy at the gym. He's like an older dude at the gym. And the first time he came up to me and introduced himself, which I thought was very funny because he introduced himself on the anniversary. Was it? No, it wasn't the anniversary of my dad's death. It was my dad's birthday. It was my dad's birthday. So it was back in June. But the reason I remember this was because I was, kind of celebrating and honoring the day of my dad's birthday. And this guy, Dino, came up to me at the gym and introduced himself for the first time, which I thought was the universe being funny because my dad's name was Dean, and Dino was like not that anyone like really called him that, but like, anyway. So this guy Dino comes up to me at the gym, older dude, and what he first said to me was, "Your focus," and I remember this because I felt so seen by it. He was like, "You are so focused in your workouts." Like you, and I remember being like, "Yeah, I am. I don't come here to fuck around. I don't come here to pay attention to what's going on outside of me. Like I come here to focus. I come here to practice focusing on myself." And so I felt very seen by that he was like, "You are so dialed in. Like it is so obvious the way that you work out." And so anyway, so now Dino and I, we say hi to each other at the gym and blah, blah, blah. And then recently, a couple people, again, I'm going to come back and say more about this, but a couple people that I've been at this gym with over the last year have made comments to me about how like it's obvious that I've lost weight and I look great and I look strong and I'm leaned out and blah, blah, blah. And so this guy Dino recently said to me, quote unquote, I'm not kidding. He said, "You get a lot of attention at this gym." And I remember being like, "What do you mean by that?" Like, there's a few familiar faces. I wave at a few people. I've talked to a few people, but like, what do you mean? And he was like, "You get a lot of attention. Like people notice you." And it's not just me who sees that your body has changed, but like people talk about you. People notice you. And again, I'm not going to get into like my whole reaction to that. But the reason that I'm bringing it here, and the reason I was like thinking of you, this podcast, these episodes, as soon as I heard it, was because my immediate reaction to that was, who knew? Like I had no idea. Apparently I am getting a lot of attention and I have no idea about that. I'm not like at this point now, again, I'm awake to the social context, living in the social environment. It doesn't shock me to hear that, right? I'm not going to my therapist being like, "Why am I getting so much attention?" Like I'm not in denial anymore. So I get it. I work really hard. I'm really fucking sweaty. Like I'm really, really sweaty. I've lost weight. I'm focused. I'm disciplined. I go hard. Like I train like an athlete. The number one question I get at the gym is, "What are you training for?" And so I imagine that to be true. Like, okay, again, I'm not shocked by it, but what I find reinforcing and validating and ultimately in so many ways, kind of proof that I am like embodying everything I'm talking to you about is I did not know that. There's no way for me to know that. And so again, it's like people aren't judging me negatively. Arguably, people are talking about, apparently to each other, about how I look great and I work really hard. Cool. But this is why, again, what other people think of me, negative or positive, is none of my business. Because if I were to know that, if I were to get distracted by that, if I were to say, "Oh, really? What are people saying? Like, I want to hear all about it. Why don't people come up and tell me that?" It's like, that's a distraction. That's a distraction. I don't need other people telling me how great I am when I'm in the middle of a workout, because that is a distraction from my workout. That is a distraction from me being in my own body. I appreciate it. It's always nice to hear, sure, but I have to be mindful to stay focused. I have to stay in my lane where I am if I want to stay connected, grounded, present, embodied, and therefore safe. And what this also reminded me of is, God, I don't remember where I was or what year it was, but it was around the time, if I had to guess, probably around like 2014, 2015, something like that. And what I remember was, the reason I know it was around that time period was because I was struggling. I was struggling and I was really putting a lot of effort into recovery. And at the time, I was working really hard to do essentially this, would keep bringing myself back and not get distracted by other people, positive or negative. And I remember I was on vacation with my family and I was still really consistent with exercise, but I was being mindful of like not overdoing it and stuff. But I remember being on vacation where we were. There was no gym around, and there wasn't really anywhere for me to like go for a run or anything like that. And so I had gotten really good because I had gotten really good at like creating my own workouts. I wasn't yet a personal trainer. I think that, okay, so 2014-ish, probably 2013, 14. I wasn't a personal trainer yet. I didn't like really know a lot about how to move, but because I did have the intention to stay fit and ultimately not gain all my weight back when I was on semester at sea. And I started doing, like I shared, I was doing Insanity, I was doing at-home workouts, and I just started to kind of piece together things. And this was also the very beginning of like workouts being filmed and put on Instagram, like the very beginning of that. And I would start doing some shit I found online. So anyway, so I'm on vacation and I wanted to work out. And what I remember was there was like this pool area that like this gated, there was a pool and there was a gate around it, and there's all these people sitting at the pool, right? And next to that, there was this kind of hill, like this grassy hill incline type space. And that's where I decided I was going to work out because I could do things like run up and down this hill for like, high intensity intervals. And then I remember, remembering the bear crawl, which is like literally an exercise that is you're on your hands and feet and you're crawling. And it's a pretty good workout, especially if you're doing it on an incline. And I remembered that. And so picture this, okay, is like there's all these people sitting around a pool, and then not immediately next to that, but not hidden. There was nowhere for me to do this where no one could see me. And so I remember like bear crawling on my hands and feet up this hill, and then like running back down, and then bear crawling back up and running back down, and like, side shuffling and like just doing all this like athletic type stuff. And I remember realizing that people could see me, and were probably staring at me or watching me or making some sort of judgment about, I don't know what was going on, but I remember being acutely aware that it wasn't going to stop me. And I remember again being able to embody this energy of like, I want to work out because I am focused on my goals, and what you think of me, positive or negative, is not going to stop me, is not going to get in the way of that, period, the end. And I got to practice that. And I got to practice that a lot. And as I was putting all, I'm reliving like I'm having so many flashbacks and memories as I'm thinking about all this. But it also reminded me of when I was at Michigan and, the year of my weight loss and senior year, maintaining my weight and trying to figure all this out. And this energy of like, it's not going to stop me. And there was a punching bag, like a boxing bag that hung in one of the gym rooms at the gym at Michigan. And I had done like a few kickboxing classes or boxing classes. So I had a pair of boxing gloves, but I didn't really know what I was doing. I didn't have necessarily proper form, but I was remembering walking to the gym and putting on the gloves, and it would be before my first call. This is when I was waking up at the crack of dawn, and it was so cold out and nothing was going to stop me. And I would go to the gym and I felt like Rocky. I literally felt like Rocky. And then I would go and I would punch the bag, and I didn't know what I was doing. And I remember, again, this is like an example of how it's not that I didn't care. It's not that like I was living in the world as though no one else was there. But when I had the thought of like, what if someone else sees me and that makes me insecure, that makes me uncomfortable? It was like, so what? So what? So what if someone else sees you? That's going to stop you? And it was like, no. Okay. So maybe someone else sees you. Like that. I just, again, got to keep practicing this. So I remember this bear crawl experience where I realized at a certain point, and this is what I've said to myself many times since then, is I don't work out the way that I do to get attention. But I'm also not going to stop working out the way that I do because I get attention. And that is where I live right now. When I remember, when I'm mindful, when I can bring myself back to my own values and sense of self, right? When I can do all of that, I'm not working out to get attention. But I'm also not working out, or I'm not going to not work out because I get attention. So what this all translates to, and the reason that one of the last things I want to tell you about is the experience I had in the Austin, Texas airport. I believe it was the last time that I was here. I'm in Austin right now. This is where I'm recording this from. But here's why it all matters, okay? It's not because of what I'm doing. It's not because of the bear crawls and the treadmill and the bubble and all that shit. It's because this is how it translates to way beyond exercise, to you feeling safe in a social context. Okay, so the morning that I was leaving Austin, the last time I came here, I was feeling a tremendous amount of anxiety, and I wasn't sure why. And then, yada, yada, okay, I don't have to get into all the details, but essentially, on my ride to the airport, I'm on the verge of like a complete mental breakdown. It was one of those times where I was leaving a trip and I was going home, and oh man, it was really rough because it was one of those times where it was like, I don't want to go home. I don't want to go home. And it was way deeper than, I don't want to go back to work and blah, blah, blah. Honestly, like I'm always excited to go back to work. It was more, oh shit, I have built a life that is out of alignment. And I was being very confronted with that. And so I got to the Austin airport. Now I'm in tears and I can feel the tremendously charged temper tantrum that my inner child was having that started with, I don't want to go home. And then it turned into a lot of the messages that she had to share with me about how my life was not, it was really out of alignment. Okay, so anyway, so I'm sitting in the airport. I got to my gate and I'm preparing to get on the plane. And I knew that what I had to do was listen. I knew that what I had to do was listen to her, my inner child, and everything she was feeling, and all the fears and all of the very hard, ugly truths that I had staring at me. I had to tell the truth about that, and I had to look at that. And me going home was the impetus for this coming into my awareness. And so here's what I want you to picture, because this is exactly what happened. I got through security and I'm sitting at my gate, and there's a little table and chair situation, a little bit separate from the gate, but like right in the middle of the airport. And this is one of those times where I know exactly what I need to do, which is like put on the right meditation music and go inside. What I need to do is listen. What I need to do is connect with myself and create space for the really big feelings that I'm having. But if I were to do that, what that means is that I'm going to be crying in a public place, that I'm going to choose to create space for me to feel feelings in the middle of a crowded airport. And what would typically happen, again, I want to say for most people, or what would happen for me at a period of my life, most likely, is that I would let the fact that other people would see me and potentially judge me stop me from doing exactly what I knew I needed to do for myself. And now that I have strengthened this muscle so much in yoga, at the gym, on the treadmill, with my bubble, because I have this muscle of I am safe to get my needs met and honor myself and embody authenticity regardless of what other people are thinking of me, because I've strengthened that muscle, now I can take it outside of movement and exercise and into life and healing. So this is exactly what I did. I sat down on the chair in this crowded airport, and I put on the right music, and I had my AirPods in, and I knew that I had probably at least 30, 45 minutes before I had to think about boarding the plane. And I knew I was right in front of my gate. I had all the things. Okay, so I was like, all right, I am safe to really drop in to the emotional experience that needs my attention. And so that's what I did. I put in my AirPods, and I remember I put my backpack in between my feet so no one could steal my shit, and I let myself be really present. And what that looked like is that I was sitting in the airport with my eyes closed, my AirPods in, streaming tears. And at a certain point, a hand on my heart and a hand on my belly, and I am envisioning that I'm in my bubble. I'm envisioning that I'm in my bubble and no one can touch me and no one sees me, and I'm in a world alone. And not because the world is an unsafe place, but because I need to focus on me right now. And if I'm aware that there are other people around, I can't be focused on me right now. And so again, it's not that I quote unquote just didn't care, that I didn't care that other people were seeing me cry. No, I had all that. I had all that chatter in my mind. I had that insecurity. I had that discomfort of like, oh God, what if people see me crying? And then very quickly, again, it's like very quickly I forgot. And then I remembered that I don't give a fuck about that. That if other people see me cry, okay, other people see me cry. So what? I need to be here right now. I need to be here for me right now. I am having a huge emotional reaction to something, and I am not going to let other people seeing me cry be the reason that I don't release the emotion that needs to be released. So to be clear, again, it's not that I don't care. It's not that I don't get that, I'm going to call it like habitual insecurity. It's just that I can recognize very quickly, because I practice this. I practice this intentionally. I can recognize this is my animal brain. This is my fear. This is my conditioning. And then I remember who I am. And I remember that I am safe despite whatever they're thinking, whatever their judgments are. All of that is irrelevant to my life. I need to be here with me. And this, you guys, this is why all of this matters. This is why I go to the gym and I go to yoga and I practice not being distracted by other people, because when my inner child needs my attention and I have a lot of emotion that needs to be seen and expressed and released, I can do that. I can activate the same bubble that I put around the treadmill so that I can run sprints at maximum speed and not be thinking about what you think of me. Is the same bubble. It's the same skill and tool and practice that I can use when I'm sitting in the airport and I need to cry about some stuff. And this is the whole point, okay? Is that if I can be in my body with myself, feeling my feelings in a social context, this is me allowing myself to embody authenticity while there is an active audience around me. Now my brain, my animal brain, can understand that I am safe here. Regardless of what other people are thinking, I can get my needs met. I can behave the way I need to behave. I can be in alignment with me. This is how it all comes together. So if I am, again, living this way and practicing this, what that means is that I am safe. I am safe to feel my feelings. I am safe to be in my body. I am safe to turn inward when there is the temptation to go outward. I can stay in my body, focus on how I feel rather than be so distracted by how other people, again, how I look on the outside. And again, I hope it's making as much sense to you as it is to me that these are all parts of the conversation. If we're talking about you need to feel safe, you need to feel safe in your body and you need to feel connected to yourself and not just in a vacuum, right? It's not just when you are alone. It is the fact that we have to build this safety in the mind-body system within the social context and within the environment in which it exists. And then for what it's worth, I remember going through this at the airport, and after about 30, 40 minutes, I was really fucking crying. And by the way, I have had so many of these experiences now where I'm crying in public and it literally, it doesn't faze me at all anymore. Because it's like, again, it's like I have energy that needs to be released from my body. If you're uncomfortable with that, that's a you problem. But after that, God, there is so much gratitude. There is so much gratitude And there is so much pride. There's gratitude on the part of the inner child. She feels so grateful because I'm willing to do that. She feels so safe with me and connected to me that I am willing to say, I don't care how this looks to other people. I'm here with you. And that, you want to talk about safety? You want to talk about feeling so safe you don't need to fill that void with food and drugs and alcohol and other things. That is where a lot of that comes from, is I don't care about what other people think of me. I am here for you. I'm staying here with you. That is where safety comes from. But then there's also so much pride on the part of the parent that I didn't let other people's judgments get in the way of me connecting with my child. I am proud that I'm unraveling and rewiring the system that says other people judge you, and that should, matter more than getting your own needs met. There is so much pride and strength and empowerment that comes from, you don't get to tell me where my energy goes. You don't get to tell me what I focus on. And you out there, outside audience, male gaze, whatever it is, social construct, you do not get to get in the way of me and myself anymore. There is a lot of strength that comes from that. So if we want to talk about, again, feeling safe and feeling strong and protected and empowered moving through the social context, this again is how it happens. And then, all right, last thing I'm going to say about all of this, because this is kind of the same thing. And I thought of this just this morning when I was walking back here with the intention to record the last episode. This happened recently, actually, really recently. Let me back up and say, all right, over the last decade or so, as I start telling the truth about, other people see me and other people have judgments of me, I think that it is truly fascinating. Well, many things are truly fascinating about this, but what I find I've noticed is I see the way women especially look at me. And I could say a lot about that, but I'm not going to get into it. I see the way women look at me, and sometimes it feels like, and I'm never going to straight up assume what's going through anyone's head. I can't know, but also, I live in a social context, so I'm not blind to it. And sometimes I find that some women especially look at me with this, almost like they're proud of me, almost like, like good for you. Like you walk down the street and, confident and assertive. And my dad always used to say, walk with authority. And I think I get that and I embody that. And so sometimes other women look at me like, yeah, get it, girl. And then very often I also see women who look at me like they hate me. Like they are really mad at me. Honestly, again, it's not that I don't care, but I'm very aware that part of the reason that the energy in my body is such that I don't care or it doesn't bother me is because I'm very aware that we don't see the world as it is. We see the world as we are. Okay. So when other women are looking at me and judging me and perceiving me or whatever it is, all I am is a reflection of their own thoughts and their own judgments of themselves. I know, and I have accepted and I am confident about the fact that I walk through the world and I'm a mirror. We are all mirrors to each other. Again, we've talked about this already, but it's like other women, especially, look at me and what I'm doing is projecting. It's like all of their internal stuff that they are or the way they judge themselves and the way that they've objectified and internalized the curriculum of girlhood and they apply it to themselves and other women. That's all I'm reflecting. I'm just like a projection. And that doesn't bother me because it has nothing to do with me. It's not about me. So that's the other thing I just want to throw into this conversation. It's like, by the way, not only is it that when other people are judging you, it's none of your business, but when other people are judging you, it has nothing to do with you. It's not about you at all. You are the mirror. You are the projection. You are the reflection of their own internal system. And so that's another reason that it's so easy for me to be like rubber, not like glue, where, okay, so some woman's giving me a dirty look because I look good. That's okay, fine. So in part, I say that because I want to invite you to remember that is, okay, yeah, people might be judging you negatively, but like, again, that's not about you. That has nothing to do with you at the end of the day. But the other reason I'm telling you this is because here's the story I want to tell you. This happened recently. It was in August, September. So we're in February right now. I'm in February, right? This is the last day of February right now. So this was just a few months ago where I went out and it was like this day party, live DJ, outdoor situation in Brooklyn. And I went with one of my friends and we ended up meeting these two guys who were so fun and hilarious that I've hung out with a few times since. But they were these two gay guys who were there together and we were dancing on a picnic table, which is, if you know me, my absolute favorite pastime in this life is dancing on an elevated surface. So anyway, so we were doing that. And I was just, oh God, I was so, again, present. Like this is another experience where you will see me dancing on a table with my eyes closed, just feeling the music, like in my body, like so present and connected. And I didn't know, I wasn't paying any attention to, again, how the girls were looking at me or how I was being perceived. I was just, because again, at this point, it's like, I am mindful and intentional about not letting that be where my focus goes. And so there were these girls that, I don't know exactly what happened, but there were these girls around my age, I think, that either like wanted to get up on the table or were like trying to stand where we were standing or like something like that. And I don't remember, and I couldn't tell you the details, but all I know is that I'm like in my own world, just like dancing, having a good time. And, you know, really taking a page from my younger self, like the version of me that would just not pay any attention to what was going on outside my head. And I just remember one of the guys that I was with, pokes me on the shoulder and I turn around, I'm like, what's up? And what he said to me was, straight girls hate you. He was like, do you know that straight girls really hate you? And we just like laughed about it. And part of it was I remember feeling validated that someone outside of me could see that this is sometimes how I was perceived. And then I said to him, I corrected him. And I was like, it's not that straight girls hate me. It's that insecure girls hate me. That I know, that I'm aware of, that I've accepted, because I don't share that. I walk through the world with a sense of purpose and sense of self and confidence and pride and embodiment and safety. I do. And if you don't feel those things in your experience, and I am reflecting to you potentially what you don't have or how you don't feel, yeah, very often I get looks or comments that would suggest that insecure girls hate me. That's what it feels like sometimes. But I remember, again, just kind of like laughing it off and being like, wow, someone else actually sees this. Someone else actually sees the way that I get judged and perceived. And again, that is wildly different than when I was twice the size. It didn't feel to other women like I was much of a threat, or that I had what they wanted, or things like that. So I'm saying this because it all, to me, is about, obviously at this point, what it takes, I guess, to move through the social environment that we can't get out of with an animal brain and feel safe at the same time. So I will end it with the last thing that I wrote here in my notes that I thought I was going to get to like 4 episodes ago. All of this is about, and I know I'm being redundant at this point, but I'm just going to close it off with, all of this is about feeling safe as a foundation. And if you are so preoccupied with how other people view you rather than how you're feeling and experiencing your life from the inside, it's as though you are perpetuating the belief that you are not safe. So that, my friends, is what I invite you to continue to pay attention to, draw your awareness to, let these concepts sink in and marinate a bit so that we can now bring this all back to what does it mean for you in regards to intentional weight loss. Okay, guys, we did it. We did it. We did the 4-part, this is a 4-part series, 4-part sidebar series within the solo series. Great, cool, we did it. Thank you again. Thank you for being here. Thank you for listening. As always, let me know your thoughts, your feelings, your feedback. Please rate, review, subscribe, and share. We are on a mission to wake the world up. So thank you for being out of the cave with me. Thank you for coming. I love you. I hope you have the best week, and I will see you next time.